How are we feeling about chat?
Chat is okay so far.
So what I like is the you creating your own headers, your message list, your input, like, and then importing it, exporting and importing it. That's kind of cool. Kind of like that concept.
So we're going to keep using that concept tonight. We are using our components to pass some data around using props. We're going to start the night off with using that input, getting that input to work, getting our messages to show up properly, playing around with timestamps a little bit and understanding how those are working. So we've got some state practice to do tonight and some props practice to do tonight. Anyone else? How are we feeling? Do we see why we're using React? Do we like React more than JavaScript? Do we like React more than HTML? Do we want React to go burn? How are we feeling?
I think once we get JavaScript, the hands down, React is gonna be a blast. I think, to be honest with you.
I just think the missing JavaScript piece, that clarity, I think once that comes together, then everything will.
Because I like the concept of React, though. I do like it.
Cool. Anyone else have any comments or questions from yesterday's code before we dive into today?
So,
okie doke. We are going to share my screen. I am going to start by going to my desktop, my code, my week 13. I'm going to right click on my day. Nope. I'm going to go into my day 2 and I am going to copy my chat app. And then I am going to go back out to my day 2 folder, make a day 3 folder and paste my chat app in there. So again, we're going to week 13, day 2. We're copying the entire chat folder. We are then going to day 3 and pasting in chat into day 3.
This takes forever. All right, let's.
And that's going to take a couple minutes because it's copying the entire installation of React and a couple other things that make React work under the hood. Once that is done, we are going to file open folder in VS Code. We're going to go to day 3, open up the chat folder. Once we get chat open, we're going to right click on package.json, open an integrated terminal, and we are going to npm run start. And while that's firing up, we should, same code in the new folder, Nicole, in case you're looking. And we should see our message history here, our header up at the top, our messages, and then the input down at the bottom. So give everyone a moment to catch up there.
Max, tell me again. Okay, so yeah, this happened yesterday. So when I try to right click on chat, it's not saying.
Just Command C.
No,
and then go to day 3 and hit Command V.
Oh, that's right. Command C. I don't see anything.
Before I leave anyone in the dust, I started a poll. We're just making sure that you've got this fired up from yesterday, where you can see messages with mom, you can see the message history, and it's all running on 3000. Does anyone need help?
Just to make sure, what we call it, and we're not making an additional folder.
We're making a day 3 folder and taking our chat app from day 2 and pasting it into day 3.
I think, okay, no problem.
That's not working. Was I supposed to go through VS Code?
After you get the folder pasted, you can open it in VS Code, yes.
So I shouldn't have gone through VS Code to try to get it done.
No, we created the day 3 folder in Finder. We went into day 2, we copied the chat app. We went back to the day 3 folder and pasted chat in there. And then we opened chat from the day 3 folder in VS Code.
Okay, gotcha. I don't know why I keep trying to.
Okay, yeah, I remember I had made an additional D3, but I had to go back in. So yeah, I already had one, but I just have to put it in there.
Got 6 votes in, normally shooting for 10. So give you guys another minute. Again, all we did, we went to day 2, we went into chat and we copied this folder. We then went back up into the week 13 folder and created a day 3 folder and then pasted the entire chat folder into day 3. Takes 2 or 3 minutes to paste. After it's done pasting it, we go back to VS Code, we fire open folder, we go to our week 13 day 3 chat and pop that open. Once we pop that open, we right click on package.json and open an integrated terminal. Once the terminal pops up, we then npm run start, and that pops open our localhost 3000 for us.
What's all in chat? Because I don't have a chat folder, so I'm trying to figure out. I didn't name mine chat, so would it be just
it's a source folder, and it's got app.js in it and all of this stuff.
Yeah, so I can just, but it doesn't have the nodule. It doesn't have, I just have my source. That's all I need.
No, you need the public folder. You need everything that is inside of everything that you see here is what you need. So here's what I'll do. I'm going to just zip mine up and I'll post it in the live stream and you can use that as a starting point instead.
Okay, I have a really quick question. So, oh, that's your screen. So can I duplicate my folder too and put it in day 3 or no?
That's fine, or you can copy and paste it. Either works.
Okay, all right, never mind.
And I just uploaded my chat file to the live stream. So if you want to use that as a starting place, you can. Okay, we're going to move on here. So we've got our messages going on in our message list, right? And we've kind of hard-coded this out for a sent message and a received message. But we would want to keep our messages in an array, right? And that array is going to loop over our messages, and based off of whether it was sent or received, it's going to render something out there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our message lists, and we're going to say, hey, we're starting out a new thing in state. So we're going to say const messages, set messages, and that is going to start as a use date as an empty array. And live share is posted in live stream as well as Slack. Okay, now we've got our messages in here, but our messages have to keep track of a couple pieces of information. They need to keep track of the text of the message itself. So we're going to say text, and we're going to say my first message. It needs to keep track of the timestamp of when that message was sent. So we're going to say, hey, make that a new date, and it needs to keep track of whether we sent it or received it. So we're going to say, hey, this was not received, which means I sent it. We're then going to copy that whole object, put a comma in, paste the object, and say my first incoming message, and we're going to say received is true. So I do that. I come back over to my browser and I get this error. Use state is not defined. We're like, what do you mean use state is not defined? Use state is a React thing. Well, we've got to tell it up at the top of the file, hey, import use state from React. And what that's doing is it's saying, hey, use state is coming in from React. That's the React package. It's built into there. So now when I come over here, I see everything again, but I see starting a real convo, whatever the other messages are here. We're not using messages in our state to actually render out the messages themselves. So we need to change this code in here to go over each one of the messages in our state to make that content show up. So what we're going to do is we're going to, how do we loop over an array in React? Does anyone remember?
Use map.
We're going to map it. So I'm going to delete out everything in here, and I'm going to say, hey, go to our messages and map over each message. And for each message, we're going to return something. But we can get clever here and say, hey, if the message was received, then we are going to return a received message with the text coming from the message text. Else, the message wasn't received, which means that must be a sent message. And that is going to take the text of the message.text. Now we come back over here, we see my first message, my first incoming message. And if I modify my state and copy another one in here, based off of what data we change up here, it's automatically going to show that in here. So we're using state, and we're using state because when we send a message down here, we automatically want that message to show up here. We haven't gotten to this input yet, but we do have our messages now showing off based off of the loop. So we're going to stop there and pull. Does anyone not have access to the live stream? Is it helpful for me to paste the code into Slack?
I got it out of Slack.
Okay. If anyone needs help or is feeling lost, just come off mute and we can help you get caught up.
I don't know. I think my file got corrupted or something after I tried to copy it.
Do you want to share your screen?
Sure.
Okay, open up your console. Excuse me. Always start at. Okay, it says text is not defined, messages list 18. So go to your messages list and look at line 18. Okay, so it's trying to use the text right here. And where is text defined?
Input? No.
Nope. Go back to messages list. We've got our text coming in. Nope. Scroll back up for me. All right, leave it there. We've got our text coming in as a prop. Whatever the text is right here, we want to make show up in our component. How do we tell the component, hey, there are some props coming into this component that you should know about? Yep, but we got to put those in curly braces because they're coming in as props. Props are always a key value pair. And then move that parenthesis to outside the curly brace.
Yeah.
Okay, and do that same thing for your received message as well. Okay, save and take a look in your browser. Okay, there you go. You may be missing some styling on the incoming message, but you are caught up other than that.
What happened between yesterday? It's weird. Okay, thanks.
Does anyone else need help? Stephanie, go ahead.
Can you let me share my screen because I'm not sure where I have a couple errors flashing.
Okay.
Here, but I'm not. So this guy, I'm not sure what I did wrong.
Yep, you were supposed to have an array instead of an object. So this should be a square bracket instead of a curly brace.
Oh.
And then same for down here as well. Okay, that should get you a little further.
Huh.
That set message is assigned a value but never used is okay. We haven't used it yet.
Yeah.
Everything else looks okay. Check in your browser and see if it's working. Other than that, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Any other questions? Got 7 votes in. Would love to get a couple more. Last call for any questions before we move on here. Do we understand why we're using state here, right? We've got our messages, and what we want to do is be able to set our messages so when a new one comes in, it automatically comes through and uses this data in here. Okay, so we're rendering everything out. We're looping over everything. Now, this is going to annoy me because if we look in the console, we've got that pesky warning about each child in a list should have a unique key prop. So let's go ahead and fix that. Let's say, hey, in addition to the message, we're going to get the index, and then we are going to use that index as the key so React knows what to keep track of. So when we save that, we come back over here, we refresh the whole page, and now our warning is gone about key. So we just use index at, we just use index as our parameter coming out of the map function. We then add that key onto the message. Okay, now we want to make it so when we type something in here, we say ABC and we hit the send button, we want it to show up as a new message that we have sent. So we go into our message input file, and we've got our text and our send, but we need the ability to hook into this text. We need the ability to know what they have typed in there. So we are going to change our message input to say message text and set message text is going to come from use state, and it's going to start as an empty string. Now, I did use some autocomplete there, so VS Code saw that I was starting to use state and automatically imported it for me. But remember, state's kind of a two-way thing. Whenever a new letter gets typed into this input, we need to set the message text. And then whenever that value updates, we also have to tell it, hey, the input is using that value. So we're going to do that. We're going to say value is equal to message text. And when that message text changes, grab the event and do something with it. What do we want to do with it? We want to set the message text to the event target value. So we come back over here, and nothing really should change, but now that we have set up this state, when this send button is clicked, we are able to do something with it. We are able to actually retrieve out this message text here. So what we're going to do on this button, we're going to say, hey, this button is a type submit. And on submit of this form, now I could do my function in here, right? But now we're getting really messy because we've got a bunch of functions going on inside of our HTML. So instead of it going on up here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say form submitted. I'm then, instead of doing it as an inline function right here, I'm going to come up before my return and say const form submitted is equal to a function that takes the event. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to console log out my message text as soon as the form is submitted. I go back over to my browser, I type in ABC, I hit send. My ABC disappears, but yo, what happened to my console? Where's my text? Well, pay attention down here. As soon as I hit that send button, it appears for a split second and then disappears. Okay, we are close. It's showing up in my console, but where's it going? The problem here is that the form default action is to refresh the page. It thinks that when we want to submit the form, we want to submit that form up to the server, but we're not using a server here. So what we need to do is we need to say, hey, React, when you get the event, prevent the default action from happening. This is what is going to prevent our page from refreshing when form is submitted. Okay, so I come back over here, I type in ABC, I hit send, and now ABC shows up in my console. So we're going to stop there and poll.
Okay. C, Y, and okay. B, C.
Hey, Max, Stephanie has a question.
Thanks, Mel. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Can you show your browser screen again? Because I don't think mine's showing it in console. Yeah, so when I do ABC, it doesn't, ABC send, it doesn't show up in the bottom there.
Okay, so check to 1, make sure that you've got your on submit added here. 2, check to make sure that your type is set to submit on the button itself. 3, make sure that you've got const form submitted that's taking in the event. And then also make sure you've got your event prevent default, and then finally console logging out the message text. It looks like you have all of that. Let me know and you can share your screen.
All right, give me a second. I'll check. Thank you. I got it. I was missing the form. I didn't type in form submitted.
I'm just talking to myself. Can I share my screen?
Go for it.
Where is it? Oh, where did it go?
Okay, that is, it's telling you in app.js, line 11, you've got a problem.
Let's see. Bring it over.
Okay. You've got messages input. Where do you import messages input? Yep.
Oh.
Just be careful though. What's the name of your file? Because that's what.
So is it supposed to be a S? Or
no,
not?
Just 1. It's supposed to be singular everywhere.
Even on this one?
No. So think about this. When you're typing in a message, do you ever type in multiple messages?
No, but when you receive them, it's multiple.
So that's why we say messages list, but we just say message input.
Okay.
Now I think you have one more. Okay, received message is not defined on messages list, line 25.
Right. Line 20. Oh, what does that 29 mean?
29 characters over is the problem.
Oh, wow. 25. Let's see.
Okay, so it can't find received message. So scroll down and let's see where your received message is. Because we've got your sent message, you're gonna have to scroll over a little bit more.
It's okay. It's spelled wrong. It's the first thing I see. This is spelled wrong.
So, well, scroll down and see if it's spelled wrong down. So it looks like, yep, looks like it's a spelling issue.
All right, the last time. Yay.
Good to go.
Thank you.
Larry, you're up.
I just want to know, at this point, we're just supposed to have my first message, first incoming messages using states, and then when you put a message in the input form and press send, it's just supposed to show up in the console?
Correct. Yep. Right. ABC should be showing up here when you hit the send button. And if you've got that showing up, you're all caught up.
All right. Thank you.
All right. So we've got 6 votes in. We're almost to that finish line. Let's go ahead and trace through this code. So we've got our message input here, right? And we want to be able to keep track of what the person has typed in. So in order to do that, we use state and we start the initial value out as an empty string. Now, use state always returns two things. One is the message text. Hey, what has the user actually typed in? And the other is set message text. So whenever the user enters a letter, we're able to use the state and get that working. So what we do is we have to do it in both directions, right? We have to say, hey, the value of this input is going to be stored in message text. And we use those curly braces to say, hey, that's a JavaScript value coming your way. Then we say on change. On change is the event coming from the browser. We take that event whenever the letter is changed. We pull the value out of the event and we store that into set message text coming in from our state up here, which means that our message text is going to be updated, which means coming down to our value, that is also going to be updated. Okay, so we've got both directions set up, right? It knows to use the value, but we also say, hey, when that value changes, go ahead and set that into our state. Now, what's the point of doing that? That is so that we can get our message text when the form is submitted. So on our button, we need to tell it, hey, this button type is submit. Okay, what do you want to do on submit? Well, we could do another inline function here, but instead of doing an inline function or an anonymous function, we declare it up here instead. So when we're looking at this, we're saying, okay, form submitted. What parameters does form submitted takes? Oh, it takes the event. Okay, but the default form submitted in any browser is going to refresh the page because it's trying to send the information to the server, trying to send the information to the backend. So what we do is we say event prevent default. We say don't refresh the page. We're going to take care of dealing with the data ourselves. We then console log out our message text. Well, where is message text coming from? That's coming from our state right up there. We understanding the flow there? Do we have any questions? Okay. So we're going to move on here unless anyone has questions or wants to share their screen and needs help getting caught up. Zach, go ahead.
I'm getting it to console log hello when I type in a message, but it's not showing up in messages.
That's fine. We're doing that next step. We're doing that as the next step. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
You're fine. Scotty, go ahead.
Sorry. Okay, Max, I need help.
Okay. Go ahead and share your screen.
1 second. I got a lot going on, honestly.
Okay, so start at the top. It says error reading data of line 7.
And I think
in
that
messages
happened.
list.
Yes.
Okay, so in messages list, on line 7, you're using new data. That is supposed to be new date.
Okay. Well, that would probably help me out. And then fix it here, and that would probably correct a whole lot of everything else.
And then the other one is we're using key index on line 27 and 25, but the place that we're getting that index out of is our map. So after the word message on line 23, do a comma after the word message.
Sorry. Right here?
Yep, comma, and do an index in there. And that's just saying, hey, we're getting the index out of the map function and using that as our key.
Okay.
Go ahead and save that. Okay, and you're caught up there.
Okay. And I think okay, so I see it went wrong at return, but not sure.
You've got a closing curly brace on 17 that you shouldn't have. Not that one. That's an opening one.
This one?
Yep. And then delete out the extra closing one that you just got on 17. And then you've consistently spelled message wrong, so this code should work.
I'll go back through and fix that.
You should be good to go there, though.
Okay, thank you.
Last call for any questions before we move on.
No, but I'm going to volunteer and say that I'm just still catching up on my array part right now. But
okay.
I'm still following.
I want to share my screen real quick.
Yep. Go for it.
Because I'm kind of caught up, but I just want you to explain what you changed again right here, because I think that's the only thing that's missing.
Yep. So basically what we have going on here is all of this stuff in here is hard coded, right? It's not actually using our messages stored in the state. And so what I did is I removed everything from 22 to 25. And instead I loop over it using a map. And I say, go through each message. And when you get the message out and the index out, check to see if the message is received. If it is received, then return the received message component. If it is not received, then show it as a sent message and send the message data coming from the map down into the component using props.
Okay. Look like. Also, why does mine look like that? I know it's not just this. This is what my, oh no, it changed again. I did something wrong again. Okay, I'll come back.
Where's your terminal at? You can't start React code with a live share. You have to start it from the terminal.
I didn't start it from live share.
Your computer says otherwise because it says your live share is running right there.
So it should be in one of the browsers. Click that other one there.
So stop your live share first.
Okay.
So stop your live share right there. Okay, now right click on package.json over here. Open an integrated terminal and do an npm run start. Now in one of your browser tabs, you should have a localhost 3000.
Yeah, I see it right now, but I'm just trying to figure out like what tab it is. I have so many tabs.
Okay, so now you've got your code running.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. You're missing, it looks like you're missing your messages input in app.js, and that's why that isn't showing up. That's just a guess.
Okay, that's okay. That is missing.
Okay, we're going to roll forward here. So now we've got our message text here, but we run into a problem. What's the end goal with our message text? We want to take our message text and we want it to show up in the messages that is in our messages list. Well, crap. Set messages is only in our messages list. If we go to message input and say, hey, console log out our messages list, it's going to say it's not defined. I don't know where messages list is. But because it is in a child component, in other words, it is inside of app.js and our input is in another part of app.js, there's no way for us to get access to the messages in our state that is in the messages list component without somehow getting it to flow through app. So this is a very common problem, and it's called hoisting your state. We know that message input needs access to the messages that are in the state in messages list. So what we are going to do is we have to refactor some of our code. We've got to go into messages list, take out our messages and our set messages entirely from messages list and move it into our app.js. But now we run into a problem. I'm going to save. I'm going to come over here, and it says use state is not defined. Messages list is not defined. Messages is not defined. Okay, well, the first one's easy. We can just say import use state from React. Okay, now we solved the first one. Second one, messages list is not defined. Well, I was just playing around with that in our message input. So I can go back to the console log here. I'm going to take that one out. And then finally, the last one says messages is not defined in my messages list. Okay, well, let me go to my messages list. Here are the messages I'm looping over. So how can we take the data from app.js, take my messages, and pass it down into my messages list? I don't want to use
you do another export?
Not an export, because we're passing it from the parent down to the child. We're going to do that through a prop. So we're going to say, hey, the messages prop is going to equal the messages coming in from here.
Quick question.
Yep.
So are the text, the timestamp, a prop too? I wasn't sure.
Yes, they are.
What are they? Okay. Cool.
So now I still have messages is not defined. I sent the prop in when I use the component, but now I need to tell messages list, hey, you're going to receive the messages coming in as a prop. So now when we come back over here and refresh our page, we have it back to working. When we type ABC, we still don't have that message showing up yet, but because we've hoisted our state up into the app, we are able to now have access to the messages that we're sending down into the prop, and we will have access to set messages in the message input. So we'll do that as the next step. For right now, you should be at the point where you've got your const messages use state in app.js, you've removed it from messages list, and you're getting access to the state, which is getting sent down from the messages state in app.js down into messages list as a prop. Christy, go ahead.
Where's my mic? Is my mic on?
It is.
Okay. Oh, that just went way too fast. I was so okay. So I'm in message list and I'm removing all the way down to constant messages.
No, you're removing anything that is in the state.
Okay, hold on.
So all of this stuff right here.
Wait a minute, because I don't have you up. Wait a minute, because I'm looking at where are you? Okay, so okay, all the way down to received true. Okay, gotcha. So
we're going to move all of that from the state in the messages list to the state in app.js.
Random question, you might have already said this, but how come we didn't put it with the, how come we didn't put the import use or the use state part down there where the message input and message list is? Is it because it's not in its own folder?
Are you asking about line 5 right here?
Yeah, and how come it's not down
Imports
there
always go at the top of the file.
Okay. Why? Well, yeah, I understand that, but like, it's not a folder though, right?
No, it's coming from the React package instead of coming from a file that we've defined. It's coming in from React, the NPM package.
Oh, okay, got it.
When we don't specify a file path, it knows, hey, instead of importing from a file, import from a package that we have installed.
Got it.
Okay, so what we did, we took our use state from messages list, we moved it into app.js. But messages list is now no longer happy about that move. So what we need to do is send the messages into the messages list as a prop. So in app.js, we're adding a prop called messages and sending in messages, which is coming from the state. Okay, now that we've sent messages into the child component, we go back to messages list, and right up here as the functional component, we tell it, hey, messages is no longer defined in your local state. The messages are coming in from a prop. If you've got all of that done, when you come over here, you should have your code back. And again, this whole concept is called hoisting state, because we're hoisting it, we're removing it from the child element messages list, and we're hoisting it up into the app.
Start from that first. Let's see. So we're putting that. Okay. Take that. Take this.
Should we have errors in our message thing in our console?
No.
No. Trying to share my screen.
Go for it.
What is this? I don't even. So that's saying app.js line 12.
Okay, so go to line 12.
Received true.
Go back to that error. Nothing looks wrong in your code.
Maybe I need, let me do command S.
Refresh the whole page. I think those are old errors that you've already fixed.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you.
So you're all caught up.
Okay, thanks.
The only thing you're missing, Christy, is if you look at app.js on line 27, well, on my 27, on yours as well. After app, just do a space and say inside the quotes and add in the word container.
Container?
Yes, but add it inside the quotes.
Oh, app container.
Yes, app space container. We've got two classes on there, the app and the container. And that's going to fix your scroll bar and just make everything look nicer in the browser.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, we got 8 votes in, going for 10.
Okay, Max, I'm sorry. You're going to be sick of me for today. All over the place, I think. I think I messed up by trying to fix the spelling of that one message portion, and I erased nothing that's popping up in my local host. So I'm going to share it. I damaged anything too bad, but I don't know. Sorry. I don't know where nothing just went.
Okay, so first things first, open your console so we can see where the problem is.
Oh, okay. Hold on a second.
All right, scroll all the way up to the top.
There's a lot
This
going on.
messages map is not a function on line 5 of messages list.
Okay, I didn't even think that I should have did that. I'll play with this and then I'll come back, try to debug this.
Okay.
And I'll come back if I need help. Because it's a lot. Thank you.
No problem. Okay. 9 votes in, last call for any help.
All right.
I'm a very slow typer, so I'm still behind, but I'm just right almost there.
Okay. All right, we're gonna move on here. So let's do this final push. We're so close. We've got now not only access to the messages in our app, we also have access to set messages. So just like we sent in our messages with a prop to the message input, we are going to send in set messages. So this is the prop name, and this is the function coming from right up here. So we're going to go back into our message input.js and say, hey, you're going to receive a prop called set messages. So again, we're in app.js. We already have set messages coming from our state. We need to send that function down in to message input as a prop so that we can set messages down in this input. So we're going to go to our message input file. We add in the fact, hey, we're getting set messages here as a prop. Now that we've got that prop, we can use it. So what we're going to do is we are going to set our messages, and we're going to set our messages to that new message. So I'm going to go to app.js. I'm going to take this whole object. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go back to my message input, and I'm going to paste that in.
Why are you putting it right there again?
Because when the form is submitted, we want to add a new message of whatever is getting sent. And so the text, instead of saying my first message, is going to come from the message text. Okay, so I come over here and I type in ABC and I hit send. Ooh, okay. We got the ABC showing up. That's cool. But where did all my other messages go? Well, what we run into is set messages is always going to override whatever messages are currently in there and set it to this new array. So how do we know we can copy an array into a new array? What did we cover yesterday for that?
Curly braids. I don't know.
How can we copy an array into another array? The spread operator.
Yeah.
But we only have access to set messages here. We also need access to the messages itself. So we go to app.js, and in addition to passing in set messages as a prop, we also need to pass in the messages themselves. Now we go to our message input, we get access to the messages, and we can spread a copy of the existing messages into the array. So when we come in over here, we refresh, we type in ABC, we hit send, we get ABC showing up here. Okay, that was a lot. Let's take a step back, let's review it, and then I will answer any questions that we have. So we ran into this problem of, hey, we need the ability to set a new message in the input. The problem is that the messages we're laying in the messages list. The state of all of the messages was in messages list. We didn't have access to the messages in message input. So what we did is we took all the state and message list and we moved it into the app. We hoisted that state up. Now that we hoisted that state up, we have access to messages and set messages. Okay, great. But because we pulled that up out of the child and into the parent now needs to send that data back down to the child. So messages list is the child, app is the parent. Okay, how do we send that data in? We add a new prop called messages, and we send the messages coming in from the state up here. Okay, when we send that data into the messages list, we've got to tell it, heads up, you're getting a prop being sent in called messages. And now when it goes to map over them, it's like, great, that data is coming in from a prop. I know where that is. Okay, that solves our messages list. But now we have to deal with our message input. Our message input needs two props because it can't just set the new message in. It also needs to know what all of the existing messages are so it doesn't overwrite it. So we send in two props, one called messages, the other one called set messages, and they're both coming from the state here. Okay, now in our message input, we say, hey, you're getting two props, one called set messages, the other one called messages. Here are all the existing messages. We then, once our form is submitted, say, hey, set the messages to a new array. Take all the existing messages and spread them out into this new array, which is coming from the props up here. Now, add in a new object with the text coming from message text. Where's message text coming from? That's coming from our state. Where do we update our state? Oh, we update the state on the on change. Okay, so we add in the text. We say, hey, the timestamp is a new date. And because we're sending the message, received is false. Now, what happens when we set that state in using this set messages, that set messages goes back up to our app.js, updates everything in here, but React is smart enough to say, hey, messages list uses all of those messages. So what we need to do is go back into messages list and loop back through all of the messages, including the new one, to make that new sent message show up. Christy, you're up and unmuted.
So my question is, okay, so I was trying to figure out because I want to make sure I understand this. So in app.js on line 12, and so when did this become false? Because I thought it was true. Like I think I missed when it went to false.
So it's just whenever it's get whatever message, it doesn't matter what it is. It's just controlling whether it shows up on the left side of the screen or the right side of the screen.
So false makes it go where?
Over to the right.
Okay. And then the ones that are true are on the left?
Correct, because they're received message, right? They're incoming messages.
So wait a minute. In my app.js, did I not copy enough? Because I only have two things. I don't have my first message. Did I miss that? Okay. Let me
Sure.
look.
Zach, you're up.
How are you jumping from one screen to the next? Do you just double click?
Holding command and click on the name of the component, and it will open that file for you.
Oh, okay. Cool. Thank you.
Okay, let's get a poll started. Sorry,
Max received is spelled wrong too.
Oh.
That was throwing me off earlier.
All right, can I share my screen because it's giving me errors, but I don't know. I'm kind of fried with all these messages and message.
Yeah, I'm just trying to listen to it, and it just sounds like messages.
And my problem is, like, just so I don't add an S to everything, I made everything like message. So I don't know, something ain't right up in here.
Let me just make sure. Okay. Received is now spelled right everywhere. I'm sorry about that. Sanjay, go ahead. Okay, refresh your browser page. Okay, I would go to the terminal and hit Control-C to stop that server. Then up and enter to restart the server. Okay.
Okay.
What do you need help with?
I guess nothing now.
Okay.
Thanks.
Larry, go ahead.
All right. So at this point, are we just on our screen should have the messages that were there before, like, and then each new message that you type in the send in the input box?
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
Yep, the goal here is that when we are in the browser and we refresh it, we've got our first couple messages, and if we type in any message and hit send, it should automatically show up. Bonus points, you can try and make it so when you hit the send button, this word test disappears.
I have a question that has nothing to do with this.
I will come back to you, Nicole, after Stephanie.
Okay.
I just checked my browser to see if my messages would send, and I have like errors saying at form submitted.
Okay, go ahead and share your screen. Let's take a look.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a weird one. Okay, let's look at line 8 in message input.
Oh, hold on.
Oh, yeah, no.
1 second.
So it just auto-corrected back to that?
Yeah.
So go back to your code.
Why?
Because you don't have messages coming in as a prop right up here, it's trying to autocorrect into messages list. So go ahead and do a comma messages there. And then take this import out. Okay, now do your messages, comma, and you should be caught up.
Phew, okay, thank you.
The only thing you want to fix there is you see my first message appeared, but you typed in ABC. So try and get that fixed on your
own. What do you mean?
So when you type in ABC, ABC is what should be showing up in the message over here.
Oh. Oh no. Okay. All right. I'll see.
All right, Nicole, you had a question?
Yeah, it's so easy for me to forget. I forgot. So when I think of it again, I'll say it to you.
Okay.
Okay, I remember. So every time somebody shares their screen, it stops me from typing. Is that like, how do I fix that?
If you go to Zoom US up in the top left next to the Apple logo and go down to preferences, under share screen, I thought it was in here.
You might want to check, on the toolbar in Zoom where you have the stop video. If you click on that up arrow, go to video settings, and I think share screen, and then look to see if what the window size is with someone screen shares. That may keep it that way. If you put it on maintain current size, maybe.
Yeah, that'll fix
Yeah, that's it. So it's
Yes. Say that again because I missed. Okay.
Zoom up at the top and down to preferences. Then in share screen, which is fourth one down, instead of saying full screen mode, just say maintain current size, and that will prevent that from happening in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for asking that. I needed to know that too.
So frustrating, especially when you got multiple monitors. You can't find your mouse after a while.
All right, we got 8 votes in.
Maybe I need you to check it now. I fixed my error. It's just still not submitting in the browser.
Okay, go ahead and share screen.
Maybe I missed one thing. I just add the submit button. So
okay, scroll up. Form on submit, form submitted, set messages, messages. Okay, let's go to the browser and see what's going on in there. Everything looks right on first glance. So type in a message, hit send. Okay, go back to your on submit.
Right here.
Yep, and scroll up a little bit. Scroll up. I don't see anything wrong there. Go to your messages list. And I noticed that that file isn't saved. Your messages list file isn't saved. So save that. Okay, so now messages is not defined. So where do the messages come from? Yep. But it's going to come in as an object because it's coming in as a prop. There you go.
Fresh.
Good to go.
There we go. All right, thank you.
Christy, you're up.
When you say prop, is that considered a callback prop?
No.
No, that's something different.
Callbacks are a different concept. Props are a React concept.
Okay.
So props are how we send data from parent components into children components.
And then can you explain to me the difference between that and the state again?
State is the variable that is making our data automatically live refresh onto the page. Props are how we send that data between parent and children components.
Okay.
You can use props with state variables, which is what we just did, but they don't always have to be a state variable. So props are just sending data between components from the parent down to the children. Sometimes that data is state-related data. Other times we don't use state, and we might send down a string or some other information.
So state, in my mind right now, so state is like having const something equals, that's the same as that. Okay. And then prop is, say that one more time for me.
Sending data from a parent component down into a child component.
Okay.
Right. So state is the thing that whenever we call set state, it magically makes that show up without us having to do inner HTML and loop over it all again and all of that stuff. Whenever we call set state, our data on the page just magically shows up based off of what the new data is in the state. However, sometimes we've got data that we need to use in multiple components. We've got our messages up in the app, but we need to be able to show those messages in messages list. So we pass down the messages as a prop. But in message input, we not only need to be able to set those messages, but we need the current messages to know what we're updating.
Okay.
So we send both of those down as props.
And I had another. So the app JS is the parent.
Correct.
Messages list and the messages input are the children.
Correct.
Okay. Then the app JS is that's the app. So that's what we're seeing on the screen.
Correct.
So everything that's in app JS is what's presenting as in the localhost 3000.
Correct.
But the messages input and the messages list are behind the scenes, the children that are pushing the stuff back up to the parent that's showing up on the local 3000.
Correct.
Okay.
So when we send a new message, it's coming from messages input back up to app, updating the state and app, and then sending that state back down to messages list using the prop.
And then vice versa when it responds. Right?
Well, messages list never sends anything up because message input is the one that's adding the new message. So it goes from messages input back up to the state and app, and then the state and app sends the messages back down into the messages list.
But so then messages list only receives?
Correct. And we know that because messages list never gets set message, it only gets messages as a prop.
Okay. I think I understand. I feel like I do, but I think it needs to.
So here, let's look at our.
I feel like it needs to soak in my brain,
which is fine.
I wasn't even that close to understanding the flow, so I commend you because you explained it well.
Listen, I while somebody was asking the question, I looked up state and I read what state is, and so that's why I wanted to make sure I clearly understood what prop was. Okay.
So state is anything that we get back a set from and the actual value in the state, which is here.
Mm-hmm.
Now we send messages which is a state variable into the prop called messages here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this part right here is the state. This part right here is the prop.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But we not only send down messages, we also send down set messages. So this right here is the function coming from the state. And this right here is the name of our prop. Okay. Now we send that down into messages input. Messages input needs to be told, hey, you're receiving two props, set messages and the messages themselves. Mm-hmm. Now, whenever we go to send a new message, right, whenever that form is submitted, set messages, which is coming from our set messages prop, what do we want to set the messages to? Whatever the current messages are, plus whatever our new messages is down here. Okay, well, this set messages, because it's coming in from our app.js, it is now coming in from set messages here. So we've set those messages. These messages now has that new message that got sent. So these messages trickle down into our messages list, which is getting all the messages, including the new one, as a prop in our messages list component. So we're going into our messages list. Now it's taking that prop and saying, oh, that prop is coming from the state and app.js, but because it has changed, go loop over all of them and make a component show up called received message or sent message. Okay, well, what props are sent message and received message getting? They're getting the text coming out from the message, coming out of messages, which is coming from our prop, which is coming from app.js, coming through the prop from down here. And we called set messages, which is coming from our messages input, which is happening here. So the message text coming all the way here is trickling all the way up and then all the way back down into messages list to make that new sent message show up with the text.
Okay. So outside of what we're doing right now, if I was creating an app called something else, I would be using app.js would always be the parent. And then I would style what I'm doing with the app.css. And then I would create like a input and a receiver type of file for what I'm doing, depending on what I'm doing. I'm just
depending on what you're doing. That's the big thing, right? Is if you go to NewYorkTimes.com, that could be a React app. But New York Times doesn't have an input until they go, oh, we're doing a search field. So when you click on the little search icon, we want an input to show up there. Okay, now what do we want to happen when that search button is clicked? Oh, we need to show the search results. So we're going to create a new state variable called search results that uses the search input in order to make those results show up. And then we'll map over all of them and show the name of the article and the little description or whatever. But there are React apps that maybe don't take an input, right? Maybe you say, click on link 1, 2, or 3, and we'll take you to that link. Okay, so you click on link 1, and it's going to show you the, whatever's related to link 1. Oh, you click on link 2, it's going to...
That would be your input. So even if it just had links, that would still be your input that you would style out, and you would put the, your HTML or CSS or whatever you need to have the link. So that would be your input.
Yep.
That would go to the parent.
Yep.
And then whatever comes from...
But you're locking into this app example of like, not all state belongs in the parent. Right? We only use this example because we need to say, hey, messages list makes sense that all my messages would be in there. But when I send a new message, I need the ability to update that. So I need to make sure that that state is shared between the two components using the parent. There are places in our app that are 25 components nested deep. So at work, we've got components and components and components and components, and the state isn't all tracked up at the app level. It may be a couple components down, and it goes, well, I don't care what's going on with the other part of the screen. All I care about is this little section in here.
So message input list and message list is components.
Yes.
Okay.
As is sent message and received message. As is app.
App.js or?
Nope. This function app, this is a component.
Okay. But not app.js. That's not a component.
App.js holds the file that our component is in.
Okay.
Right. So all the components we've created, app.js, header, messages list, and messages input. And a good example of messages list not only has this component in it, it has two other components, sent message and received message.
Okay.
And the way we use those components after we define them is by using them as part of the return.
Okay. Okay, I'm done. I'm done because I think that's all my brain can absorb right at this moment. Thank you. Thank you, though. I feel so much better now. I'm like,
hopefully everyone's going to get to that point, if not tonight, by Sunday. Sean Jay, go ahead.
I already fixed mine, but what did you do to clear the terminal? And then I know npm, I know how to run start, but what did you?
Control-C stops the server.
Okay.
And then the up arrow makes it input the last command that you've run, and then enter restarts it. Good to go.
I got one little error.
I'm missing something here really quick. And I want to know why my messages is like this. Yeah, why are my messages? I think I'm missing something.
Go to your message list. Let's take a look at your components.
And then also,
so go to your message list. Okay, and scroll up.
I don't got no mouse now, Max. So
content, text, and message text. User message text. Received. Let me request remote control and take a look.
Is it that Kyle 2 div she had sitting there? This with a blank thing?
No, that's supposed to be there.
Oh, okay.
That's what sets it off. 2 columns. Div ID messages. You've got some styling, which is why I'm confused. Down to 48. You've got all of that, so that's not the problem. Let's look in your app.js. You've got your container. Oh, do you not have Bootstrap?
I think that's what I was missing yesterday.
Yeah, that is what you're missing. So if we just copy this and paste this in right here. And then while we're at it, we can take the JavaScript and copy that and paste that in down here. And now.
Hey, where you put that in the index.html at the bottom?
Yep. I put the script down at the bottom, and then I put the link right above the title tag. And now you've got all your styling.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Danielle, go ahead.
Oh, wait, one more thing before you get me out of here.
Sorry, I already stopped your screen share.
Well, tell me how to do that. Change my receive, because it is throwing me off.
Oh, just change the I and the E anywhere received is spelled.
Yeah, how that little trick thingy.
Oh, I did a Command Shift F,
and
that's going to tell you all the places that received is spelled wrong.
Or if you do function F2, highlight received and do function F2 and then type it right, it will replace it everywhere in one stroke.
Can you believe all of cohort 2 didn't tell me I spelled received wrong?
Function F2.
I spelled it the same way you did it first, and I'm looking and I was like, hold up, it's I before E except after C. So I was like, okay. Then I asked Siri just to make sure, and then I was like, oh.
Yesterday, I'm like, it was.
But I think because you spelled it wrong everywhere that it just worked.
Correct.
So
Danielle, go ahead.
Okay, my it's not showing up at all in my port. I don't know what happened.
Okay, go ahead and share your screen.
Okay. Okay, so when I go to my port, for some reason.
Okay, we cannot use live server for anything React based. We have to be using npm npm run start. So if we go back to our VS Code, that's what it's doing down there, but it's saying, hey, you've got a syntax error on line 17 that you need to get fixed in messages list. So if
and when you say I can't use live server for anything, what are you referring to? Because
So when you click down here, you're starting the VS Code live server.
Okay, so what should I be using instead?
The terminal, which is what you are using here, but because there's a syntax error, it didn't start on 3000. Okay. So what it's doing is if you go to, it's telling you on messages list, there's a problem on line 17. So if you open there, those inner parentheses should be curly braces. Nope, curly, not square. Okay, and yep. Okay, now go back down to your terminal and do npm run start. No dash, just a space.
Okay.
That won't work if you have an error.
And npm, not nmp. So
you said
npm node package manager is what npm stands for. npm space run run space start enter. Okay, and now that's starting up your React. So okay, now you've got a problem on messages list line 6. So it's saying it doesn't know what message is. Where is message defined? Yep, you got it. Okay, so go back to your browser. Oh, nope, just swipe over. Use 3 fingers to swipe over to your Chrome. Okay, so you're making progress. You are also missing your bootstrap, which is why everything kind of doesn't look like it's not centered and all of that. So you need to go back through and do the same steps Tranjay just did in index, public index.html to make sure that you've got your bootstrap in there.
All right.
That index.html is in the wrong place. You need to be using the one in public, the public folder.
In public? Okay. So I don't use this one. Do I clear this one out?
Yeah, you can delete that. That's not getting used at all right now.
Should probably get the link first.
Well,
oh,
it's fine. You can grab it from. So if you open index.html, that's the one React is using. So that's where you want to add both bootstrap links.
All right. Thank you.
No problem. You're on the right track. You're closer than you think. You just have to get your props working with the message text, and then you should be in good shape.
All right. Thank you.
Nicole, you're up.
I have a question. So, did we get to the part where we are getting other words coming out of here?
Yes.
Hold on. Okay, can you help me with that?
Yep. Go to where you submit the form. And then just change my first message, take out the quotes, and say message text in there instead. Oh, okay, that works. Just get a capital T in text. Good
Thank
to go.
you.
No problem.
You do my, all right, unshare me.
Yep. All right. Any other questions before we go on break?
Breathe. Everybody breathe. Everybody breathe.
Musa.
All right, we're making good progress here on our chat app. Let's take a break. We'll be back at 7:30 and we'll do the last hour of whatever we can.
If we don't, do we just follow that React website?
Somebody still right there? I got a quick question real quick. Anybody?
Still here.
What's how do I get, how am I changing this? I can't.
Share your screen.
How am I changing this stuff? Where is it? After you had me delete it, I don't.
Well, we supposed to change what?
How do I change my?
What's the question?
That stayed in for me, but what I did is in the input box, I just typed a new message and hit send, and then the new messages came in.
Oh.
Yeah,
but that stays in when you refresh. So the way it is now is supposed to be there.
So type something in here.
So if you go down to the bottom, type something in there, hit send, or it's working.
Okay, but where are these text messages?
That's coming from, let me see, I think app.js. So if you go to app.js, and then those first three messages, 19, those are coming in, and then the other ones are coming from the sendbox.
Yeah, I see them right here. I'm trying to figure out how to change. I don't know why I didn't see that.
If you could change it, if you want to change them, you can change them there. But yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
I'm about to go home. Y'all left me swinging.
I sent the message early though. I was like, I looked at the time. I was like, I'm feeling lazy right now. Let me eat and just set my new stuff up.
My toes is cold in here.
Uh-oh.
Come tomorrow though.
I will be there tomorrow. Yeah, God willing, and the creek don't rise.
Chrissy, you better come. Chrissy. And Zach and Stephanie, you guys coming? Are y'all there?
So we've got a lot of good progress going on our chat app, right? We can send messages, we can make them show up. We've got a lot of cool info showing up there. However, there is a whole heck of a lot of code, right? So if you have that moment with Christy where you're like, I'm following this flow, I know what steps are going on here, then you are in pretty good shape. We are going to continue working on this app and getting our update and our edit functions working, in addition to delete working. However, if you're like at max capacity, if you're like, my brain has had it, I need more time to digest this, I just need some time, you're welcome to drop out of class right now. I will post the video of everything that we've done tonight up until this point. And you are welcome to go through that instead of trying to keep up. And the reason that I'm offering that option is because there's a lot that we just covered. And it's going to be 10 times more important to make sure that you understand what we just covered than it is to be able to keep on adding features. So we will keep on adding features. Class will keep going on. However, if you want to just say, hey, I've had enough tonight, let me just take a break and make sure I'm understanding all of this, that is completely fine with me. So just give me 1 second. I'm going to upload that video and I will drop the link to it in the Zoom chat and live stream. We're going to say week 12, day 3, part 1.
I didn't see that if you're not sharing screen.
No, I'm not yet. I'm just getting it uploaded so that you guys can see it. Okay, that's going into live stream. That is going into the Zoom chat. So if you're up until this point and you're like, I get it, I followed along with Christy, I understand the flow, I'm ready to add more features, stick around and we're going to add a couple more with edit and delete and all of that fun stuff. However, if you're like, I'm struggling to keep up, or I got it and I just need some more time to let it sink in, feel free to drop out of class now. It won't impact your attendance. You can drop out now, review the video, make sure you're getting it, go back and add individual line level comments in until you get it. And if you still aren't getting it at that point, go schedule a one-on-one with me. But for part 2 of tonight's class, we're going to be working on the edit. We're going to get timestamps showing up, all of that kind of stuff. So I did post the link for the video so far. I know YouTube takes a minute to process that, but it should be up any moment now. So feel free to, I called that the wrong file name too. It's supposed to say week 13. So yeah, if you feel like you just need a little bit more time to grasp all the concepts that we have done tonight, go back, review the video that I just posted, and drop out of class right now. Drop out of the Zoom room, I mean. However, if you want to keep going, then stick around and we're going to dive right in. Any questions on any of that? Okie doke, let's dive in and get started. So we know we actually have 2 operations going on working with our chat app. We've got our create working because we've got words showing up, but there's the easy one that's really easy to forget, and that's the read. Hey, our read is actually working, right? The read code is everything happening in this messages list that's spitting out the component. We're reading the data, the text, and making that show up. So, hey, wouldn't it be cool? We've got our app.js and we've got this timestamp showing up. Wouldn't it be cool if we could get a timestamp showing up on our messages? So I'm going to go back to my messages list. And in the sent message, I'm going to come down here and say, hey, there is another piece of information that I would like to show. And we are going to make that show up. Here's my message text. What if we add something that says, hey, we're going to add a div and we're going to call it timestamp. Okay, and in that timestamp, I'm just going to put timestamp goes here. So I save, I come back over, and I see timestamp goes here showing up. All right, that's a good start, but what if we just console log out? We've got a problem here. We've only got the text coming in from the message. We need more than just the text coming in. We need the timestamp information as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to modify our received and sent message, and we're going to do this 2 different ways. In the received message, what we're going to do is instead of sending down the text from the message, we're going to send down the entire message. Okay, well, when we come down to our received message, we're going to refactor this. So instead of it getting the text as the prop, it's going to get the whole message from the prop. And from there, we are going to use message text, and we're also going to use message dot timestamp. Okay, well, how are we getting both timestamp and text from the message? Because we're sending down this whole object. So props can be functions, they can be strings, they can be arrays, or we can send that whole object in. And now that we've got that object coming in, we get access to the timestamp and to the text. So when we go back to our browser, we run into this problem. And it says objects are not valid as a React child. Found object date. Okay, well, I need a little bit more information. Why is that not working? So I come up and before my return, all I'm going to do is console log out my message. Let's see what data is getting sent into those props. So I come here, I refresh, and what we get, the same error, but if I scroll up enough, I see my whole message coming in. But I see my timestamp there, and that timestamp isn't in a string. This timestamp is actually a JavaScript object, and it's a specific object built right into JavaScript that's doing all of that time formatting for me. So what we need to do is say, hey, when you get the timestamp out of the message, just turn it into a string for me. And this toString is a function built right into the time and date built into JavaScript. So I come back over here, and now I see, oh, there's my time showing up of when that message got sent. The other way of doing this is saying, hey, instead of sending down the whole message as one prop with a bunch of objects in it, instead, we could also send down the timestamp coming right from the message. Now, we have to modify our sent message to receive the new timestamp prop, and in here, we are going to say timestamp.toString. So two different ways we can access that data. We can either send the entire message down, which is an object, and then as we work with that object here, we're able to pull out different properties using the key value notation, or we can send in two props and then just use those props to show the data in our timestamp. So if I look at my browser now, I've got my timestamps going on here. And if I send a new message, you'll see that the time says 1940 instead of 1939.
That was cool.
So let's take a moment there. Go through this code if you do have it working, excuse me, and make sure you understand the difference between how we got the text and timestamp as two separate props versus as message, which was one prop, and then use the keys to pull the data out from there. At this point, you should just have the timestamp showing up not only on your sent messages, but also on your received messages.
What is that message dot text on line 41?
this is the text that actually shows up, right? So whatever the user typed in and sent, that's the actual words of my first incoming message.
Oh, from that span.
Yep, it's going into that span coming from the message, which is being received as a prop, which is coming from looping over our messages up here. Excuse me.
Can you scroll back down?
Are you sharing or is something happening?
Oh. Yeah, that the share link should be working.
Oh no, I was wondering why I was so quiet. But I have a quick
people just working on getting caught up.
Oh, okay. So I know you probably told me this 100 million times, and okay, so why? Okay, so because they're in the quotes, they're a string, so they shouldn't be in camel case. How come some words are in camel case and some words are? Just a small quick.
So we just want to be consistent, right? So like, something like received message. Well, those are two words, but whenever we use a React component, whenever we make our own component, we always start it with a capital letter. And the reason we do that there is so that we can differentiate them between components that are built into HTML like div.
Right.
So whenever we make our own component, we name them with a capital letter. Okay, but for something like, let's look at our app, we have, wrong app. We have set messages. Well, that is a JavaScript variable. So we always camel case it. We start with a lowercase letter and then we use the uppercase here. So timestamp is one word. That's why that's all lowercase. And then the same goes for singular or plural, right? Do we have multiple messages being inputted? No, we only have one. So we say that is the message input. But for here, when we've got a whole list of messages, we call that the messages list.
Got it. Thank you.
Only 5 votes in. Does anyone have questions on the timestamp stuff? I'm on the wrong file. You understand the difference between sending in the whole object here and then using that object down here to pull apart the timestamp information? Or we can send that data in as 2 separate props and then use those 2 separate props here to show that information here.
Max, can you show your the output page, the web page for a minute?
We should have the timestamp information showing up down here.
Thank you.
Other than a choice, is there any reason to do one method as opposed to the other?
It's slightly preferred to send in the whole object and then use that object to pull it apart here. But I just wanted to show options just so you understand that data can get passed multiple ways using props.
Okay, thank you.
Six votes in, hoping for a couple more. What we did is we added our timestamp prop, and then we modified this to get just the message. So we're passing in all of that data. Then in our sent message, we said, hey, because we're receiving two different props here, we need to modify our incoming prop list. And then we use that in our return to make our data show up. Then in our received message, we receive one prop, which happens to be an object with lots of information in it. And then we modify our text and our timestamp to pull the data out of that object.
Can you scroll up a little bit? Thank you. I have a question again.
Go ahead.
So I'm just trying to understand. So React is basically like, I feel like it's just like compiling stuff into words to make less code, to make things move around. Like we just keep updating it.
The point of React is to react your user interface to changes in data that we happen to keep in the state. So whenever we call set state, that's the whole point of React, is to react to data changes to make them show up in your user interface.
Thank you.
Can I share my screen?
You can now. Okay, so cannot read properties of undefined reading text, message list, line 40. So let's go to line 40. And it's trying to pull out message text. Where does message text come from? That message text is coming from the props of message. Okay, so where is that prop getting sent in? Scroll up a little bit to your received message where you use that component. And your received message is here. Scroll over. Are you sending in the message prop? You're sending in text. You're not sending in message.
Mm.
And then change your text to message. Lowercase. And refresh. And your errors are gone. So let's review that on, I'm going to pull that up on my screen. What we're doing here is we are taking our message. Where is our message coming from? That's coming from our message in our map, which is looping over all of the messages, which is getting sent in from the prop called messages. And all of that is coming from our app.js messages list. all of that is coming from the state right here. Okay, once we get into the messages list, we work on trickling it down. We say, okay, message is coming from our map, which is coming from our messages, which is coming from our props right here. Okay, so message is getting sent down all the way to our message prop right here. So this message is lining up with the name of the property, which is getting sent down into here. So we don't really need to call this message. We could call this content to show. What matters is that this message lines up with this message. Okay, so now in this content to show, that's the name of our prop. So when we come down to the received message, if we call that content to show, everything still works the same as long as we are consistent. So now that shows up. We just want to make sure that we're understanding this trickle, right? Of that it's coming in from the props here. Those props are getting lined or getting looped over and going into our message. Our message is getting sent in here. And now instead of calling the prop message, we call that prop content to show. Okay, where does that go? If we follow that down, now we're seeing, hey, received message is getting the prop content to show. And now we're pulling the data outside of that.
Okay.
Right? We're just following that trickle of data all the way down. Now, it is convention to leave the prop as the same name as the variable. So it is convention to call it just message and pass in that message information. Okay, giving everyone one more minute. Do we have any questions on this before we move on?
There'll be a reason after. Like, it's not saying I have any problems with my code, but it's not showing anything here. Did I do something wrong?
You want to share your screen? Okay, did you go into your console?
Yes.
Quickly, that two string, was the S capitalized in the string?
Yes.
Was there anything else supposed to be on that besides the parentheses? Because it says there's okay.
Right click in your browser, Sanjay, and open that console. Open the console there. And there are all of your errors.
Boy.
So it's saying message list on 24 is trying to two-string your date, and it's not getting that timestamp information.
So I was having that same error, and in all actuality, like I was stressing myself out trying to use the console log to try to figure out what was really going on. And Sanjay, it's not really that complicated. So if you look at your, go back up into your code, like in VS Code, go back up where in your return, where it say text, it shouldn't say text, it should say message. Like you have to fix that. That's your errors is at. Nope. And line 7 and 8, that was changed. Like you gotta pay attention to that. That's like if you fix those, it was throwing me off mad bad. That's why I was real quiet for a second when Max was like, I looked at all of those and I was like, what is going on? But I started like going through it and trying to like loop it and figure it out. And I figured that was messing me up. And my console log still looked the same, but everything else is still like running according. I don't know what's going on with my console log, why it looked like that, but
because I changed this down here.
And then when he just broke that down, that everything should link the same way, it even made more sense. Like, okay, well, that was what was missing from mine too.
So whatever data that is getting sent in here as props needs to line up with the data that's getting sent in to the props here. So you've got text, message text, that's fine. But you're expecting a prop called timestamp, but there's no timestamp up here.
So I just add, because I can't take this out.
You're going to add a new prop right here called timestamp equals message.timestamp. Curly braces. Oh, watch your cursor. Your cursor somehow ended up on 11. Oh, put a curly brace back in there.
Where?
Just anywhere. Prettier will fix it for you. Just put it back there. There you go. Okay, now on your timestamp equals, do your curly brace there and say message.timestamp.
I'm just gonna look at it.
Now go back, save, and go to your browser and just hit the refresh button. Okay, so now you've got a different issue on message list 40 of undefined reading text. So what we did is we sent in the whole message right here, right? So instead of sending in message.text and message.timestamp, we send in the whole message. So scroll back up to where you declare your received message. Right here. Are we sending in message or are we sending in text?
Where you said from received messages?
Yep.
Says, where did you just scroll down?
Okay, hold on. Scroll up to where you see your received messages. Oh, nope, too far. Right here. You're telling your received message right here, hey, the prop that's getting sent in is the message. Okay, so now go up to where you actually send those props in. Here's your received message. What prop are you sending in?
Message.text.
Right, but you told it you're not sending text. You told it you're sending the whole message in.
So I don't put message.text, I put message.
Hold on. We need to take a step back here. We did this two different ways on purpose. Let me share my screen. This is a case where it doesn't matter if it works or not. We need to understand the concept here. This received message lines up with this received message down here. This sent message lines up with this sent message here. There are two different ways that we used props to send down data. Whenever we use the prop, we use text and timestamp. Those are the two inputs. From those two inputs, we need to tell sent message, hey, you're getting the text and the timestamp coming in. Then we use text and timestamp directly. Okay, that's the first way. We can send that data in as two separate props. The other way we can send in the data is send in the entire message object. When we take this entire message in, we also have to make sure that our props are lining up, but then we use message.text and message.timestamp instead of using the text and the timestamp directly. So whatever props that we send in when we actually use the component, this message needs to line up with what the props are we're telling the component are coming into it. So what we need to understand here is, hey, when I console log out this text and timestamp, and I look in my browser, I see new message and the time. I see my first message and the time. That's because this timestamp is lining up with this timestamp, which is taking this timestamp and making it show up there. So when we send in the message timestamp, after it trickles down from here to here to here, really what we're doing is taking message.timestamp and making it show in this whole section right here. But we did that two different ways. This is the first time we did it. The second time we did it, we took our received message, and instead of sending in two props, which is what we did right here, we sent in text and timestamp, which is why text and timestamp line up down here. This time, we sent in just the message. That message is lining up with the message right here. But because we need to pull the data out of the message, we need to use message.text and message.timestamp instead of using the timestamp directly. These are two ways of accomplishing the same exact thing, but you have to understand how both of them are working. You have to understand that message here is an object that has the message text in it and the timestamp in it, as opposed to this method, which we break the message out from the object and send in two different props, one the text, which is the string, the other, which is the timestamp.
Okay, I get that.
Yeah, because I didn't get that. I didn't get that it was both of those together, because I'm thinking in my head, you just changed those values, but what are you replacing it with? Okay, yeah, it was something before, but now that you're putting timestamp in it, what are you doing with the rest of it? I didn't understand that those two are the same. And also, once when you showed one way, I'm trying to get that down, and then you switch to the other way. So I think what I did was I mixed the two basically together, but the first way is clicking. The second way you're showing me is not clicking in my head. It's
okay.
Still not.
Is this not clicking, or is the sent message not clicking?
The first way that you just explained to me, I understood. But the second way you're saying that it's supposed to be is the way to do it. I don't get how you're doing that.
Okay, so is it the received message or the sent message that doesn't make sense?
It's the received message.
Okay, so let's take a step back. In the sent message, we know message is an object right here, right? Like if we just console log out what our message looks like, and we look in the browser, let me just remove any console logs that I have. Okay, if we look, our message here is just an object, right? It's got the text, the timestamp, and whether or not it was received, right? Objects, key value pairs. Key is text, the message, the value is messages are now using state. Okay, we've got that object going on here. Now, the way that's making sense to you is, hey, we're sending two pieces of information down into sent message. The text, which is coming from our object, and the timestamp, which is also coming from our object. Once we send those in, we just take them out and make them show up down here. Okay, that's fine. That all makes sense. Now here, instead of sending in two properties, we just send in the whole freaking object. That whole freaking object is coming into message here. So this console log message is going to be exactly the same if we put the console log message down here, because we're sending in the timestamp and the text and whether or not it was received. So we're sending in all of that data as one prop instead of breaking that data out into multiple props.
Okay.
So when we console log this message here, and I go back over and I look at it in my browser, here's the whole object. But we can't just say, hey, make the message show up, because the message has received and the timestamp and the text. So what we need to do here is say, hey, only make the text show up from that object. So just like we use message.text here, we use message.text down here. The only difference is that we break apart the object in the props as opposed to breaking apart the object in the component itself. So this message.text is the exact same message.text that's showing up down here.
Okay.
We just said, hey, send down the whole object. And because we're sending down that whole object, we can't just make text show up here. We've got to say, hey, go get the text outside of the message. Compared to the received, we can make the text show up because we already ripped the text from the object when we sent down the component, when we sent down those props. So either way, we've got to get the text out of the message object. We can either do that when we are sending down the props, or we can do it in the component and pull out the text right from the object that's coming through the props.
Okay.
Christy, go ahead with your question.
What?
Nicole, I'll come to you next. Oh, you're...
So, can I share my screen?
You can now.
Okay, let's see. So, actually, I probably shared the wrong screen. So I have an error message, and my error message, let's see, I'll bring it over. Oh, come on now.
Is it something about timestamp is not defined or cannot do string timestamp?
No, it's saying the line, but I can't figure out what's wrong with the line. Okay, here it is.
Okay, so line 29, message is not defined. So let's go back to your code and look at line 29. Okay, we're using, let's backtrack. Sent message is our component. We're
Right.
sending in two props, text and timestamp.
Right.
So where do we need to make sure those props line up together? Text and timestamp are here.
Right.
Where do we tell the sent message component what props it's receiving?
Sent message. I don't see anything to attach to this, to that.
So your sent message is linking to the sent message here. Your text here is linking to your text from up here.
Right there.
This prop is saying, hey, whenever I use sent message, which is linking down here, take the text and send it into this.
Right.
Now we have timestamp, and we're still sending that into sent message, but it doesn't know where the timestamp is.
It's down here, right?
It can't get from here all the way up to here. It needs to trickle from here down into the props here before it can trickle down to here.
So I've been looking at so I was looking at the code, and so I'm not.
So look at my line 36, which is your line 24.
Send message return. I don't know what I was looking at, but I thought I deleted this. I deleted this div class called to, and I deleted this text. I don't know. I was trying to figure it out.
The comma timestamp.
You know what?
Yep.
I think I'm confusing sent message and received message. My sent message is on top, and my received message.
Yeah,
is
I'm going to move mine back down. I just moved that so I could draw on the screen. So here, just put it back for you.
I was looking. I was looking at message list. sent message. Okay, so I deleted a bunch of stuff because I wasn't paying attention. I'll fix it. Oh God.
Your big problem right now, what it's yelling at you about, is it scroll up just a tiny little bit. You're sending in two props here, text and timestamp.
Right.
Text and timestamp. That's getting from sent message, it's coming down to here. Now the props that you're telling sent message are coming in is just text.
So I don't have timestamp.
Correct.
I don't have that because I switched it. I switched it because I wasn't reading. I wasn't looking at what I was doing. This should be on the bottom with.
Correct. That should just say text instead of message.text.
Okay, I will fix it. I can't believe. All right. Yeah, I made myself crazy. Okay, I got it now. I'll fix it.
Your props getting sent in need to match with the props when you declare the component, which need to match with whenever you use those props in the curly brace.
Yeah, and plus I need to read. I need to read what I'm doing because I was trying to. I thought I was like, he changed the code this much, and I missed it. I made myself crazy. Okay, I got it.
Nicole, go ahead.
One second, I'm just trying to minimize the screen. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I was just trying to get the timestamp on the other side. That's what it looks like. Nothing popping up in the console for me. So I would just hoping you could help me really quick.
Sure. So go to your received message.
Yep.
And you've got this lovely timestamp code making the timestamp show up, and we know it's working there.
Oh, do I need it here too?
Yep.
Okay, do I need the curly braces?
Inside the div. You tell me, do you need the curly braces?
Yes, I do.
Yes, you do. You
All
also
right,
need to make timestamp a lowercase s because timestamp is all one word.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we're going to do the last thing tonight. We're going to get you started before I create the homework assignment. We're going to add in on our received message, we're going to add in two things. We are going to say, hey, there's going to be a new class in the Col 10 called buttons. And there are going to be two buttons in there, a span for the edit button. And then we're going to add in a space and that. And then we're going to say span and we're going to say delete. So when we go back into our browser and refresh, I did that on the wrong one. I'm sorry. I should have done that on the sent message, not on the received message. My bad. Okay. Sorry. On the sent message, we've got edit and we've got delete. So the homework is to make this edit button work so that it will ask you, what do you want to change the message to? And you also want to get this delete button working so that when you delete it, it deletes that from your messages in the state. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to do an on click, and you're going to say edit clicked, and you're going to want to do an on click here, and you're going to say delete clicked, and you need to define them up here. Const edit clicked. It's going to do something, and our const delete clicked is going to do something. So for this one, we're going to say window.confirm. Are you sure you want to delete this message? And for this one, we're going to say window.prompt. What would you like to change the message content 2. So now when I click my edit button, I say I get this pop-up. And when I click the delete button, it says, are you sure you want to delete this message? So your homework for this weekend is to get that edit working. So when I type in new text here, it will show up instead of my first message. You also want to get the delete button working so that when I hit the OK button, the message will delete. Does anyone have questions about the homework?
No.
To give you a hint, you're going to need to pass a new prop here so that you can use set message. You're going to need an if statement around this or a const around this. And then you're going to need to practice using your spread operator to actually remove that item from the array and set messages in. That's all I have for tonight. I will stick around and help anyone catch up to this point. Otherwise, feel free to start work on your homework, or if not, I will see you tomorrow for the last part of React concepts with routing and a couple other things.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Welcome to drop out if you don't have any questions. Otherwise, I will stick around. Nicole, do you have a question for me?
No, I'm going to stay as long as possible to just keep going out though. Until everyone
Not a
drops.
problem.
Good night. Feel better, Max.
Thank you.
Yes. I take if you're not feeling better, I take you won't be in person.
Probably not, although I had a drastic recovery from when I woke up this morning to how I'm feeling right now. So there is a very good chance that I will be in person tomorrow. I really think this was a 24-hour bug. And I will be completely masked up tomorrow. So good chance that we'll be in person tomorrow. Don't forget to either schedule a one-on-one with me to review your capstone work, or be prepared tomorrow to do a brief presentation of where you're at on your capstone, where you're stuck, where you're headed next. That's how we will kick off class tomorrow.
I thought that was next Thursday.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
That's this Thursday. Next Thursday, we aren't here. We're off for summer recess.
Oh.
Question.
Yes.
If I come tomorrow and can I don't have to though, as long as I reschedule, right?
As long as you have a one-on-one scheduled within the next week, you do not have to present tomorrow.
All right, perfect.
And if you are remote and have not scheduled a one-on-one, you will still have to present, just because you can't get out of it by just being in person or not being in person.
Cool beans.
All right, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Have a good one, Larry.
Oh my gosh.
If anyone's reading a section of the code and they need another explainer or a walkthrough of how it's working, feel free to just point me in the direction and I'll walk through it all.
No, I have a random question though. So, did you follow the React page for this? The one where you showed us that had all the tutorial stuff on it?
No, but it should be covering the same concepts.
Okay.
Are you talking about this stuff,
Yep.
Nicole?
Yeah, like on the side, you said you would cover every single one of those. So I just wanted to reread those to make sure.
The only thing that we didn't cover was thinking in React and composition versus inheritance. The lifting state up is what we did with the messages list and getting it up into app.js. The form we covered with the message input text down at the bottom. Lists and keys we're using by going over each message in the messages array. Conditional rendering we're doing by saying, hey, is this a sent message or a received message? Events we're handling with the on click of the on submit of the form, and also of the on change of the message input. State and life cycle, not really handling life cycle here, but we're definitely handling state, which is storing all of the messages. Components and props we're definitely doing with sending the timestamp and the message in, and also the components for receive message, sent message, message list, all of that. Rendering elements is just a less basic version of, a more basic version of components and props. And then Hello World and JSX are just, all of React that we've been using. So the only thing I didn't really do is thinking in React, and understanding like, hey, hopefully this is reminiscent of when we did our wireframes and how we kind of took a mock-up and broke it all down. That's kind of what all of this is talking about, of like, all right, now that you've got the React concepts down, where do you go next from here? So that's probably the only one that I didn't cover, but I do think I've covered everything up until 10, and I'm not really going to touch on to composition and inheritance.
Okay, thank you. Are you gonna put this code in the Slack?
Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you.
I'll also put it in the outline for tonight at some point.
Okay, thank you.
I can't get my local host to work. I closed it out.
Right click, open an integrated terminal, npm run start.
Right, but then when I do that, it's telling me wait, let me see.
You can share your screen.
Wait, it might work this time. Let's see. Right, so it's saying something is already running port 3000.
So just hit Y, enter, and that's going to change it to like 3001, and then it should work fine on 3001. Y for yes, by the way. See you, Nicole.
Should edit and delete be on every line?
On every message, yes. On every sent message.
But only when you hover over it?
Yes.
Okay.
That's coming from the class name buttons.
Right. I remember where we did it. Okay. All right. But if I close out of everything and then come back to it, my local host should start over when you close out. Because
if you close out of VS Code entirely, you need to restart your npm run start. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Last call for any questions.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Have a good one.
You too.